This is a story about Rick Siangco, and his niece, Deb Gomez, is with us. Her book is called The Magistrate, Family Man, Fisherman, Friend. We had such a fascinating off-air conversation about this man and the lives that he touched, and really some of the ceilings that he broke through without a doubt. And it made me think about, who are your mentors? Who are you mentoring? There's so much to this book that talks about family and talks about when you are the person who just continues to go, and you're not held back. You go to places where you never thought maybe you could exist, but I don't think he thought that at all. So Deb Gomez, thanks so much for coming on.
Good morning. Thank you for having me today, Kate.
So tell me about Uncle Rick and why he's fascinating, and I think he's somebody that a lot of people could be inspired by. So tell me about his story.
Yes, my Uncle Rick, we grew up in the same household, and he is 8 years older than me. So I watched him from my vantage point in the family. He was born to immigrant parents who came from the Philippines to Hawaii in 1919 to work in the sugar and pineapple plantations there. And we pretty much lived subsistence style, and we did not have much finances. So Rick, I watched him as he grew up, got into trouble, yes, and the book has a lot of funny stories about growing up and what we did in the 1950s in Hawaii. Then he went to Lahaina Luna, a boarding school where he learned to live independently and away from family. But every step he took, even through high school, and even before he went to high school, he knew he had mentors around him. And he gave them credence throughout the book and how important it is to have mentors to help him. Because even when he graduated from high school, Kate, he didn't have any money, but during high school, he worked in the pineapple fields, and he knew he didn't want to work in the pineapple fields. It was hard labor. So he joined the Air Force, and how every step of the way, he just went through doors that opened before him serendipitously. But because of his mentors, and he paid attention to when doors opened and knew how to prepare himself before the doors opened. The big thing about his life is, he says, here's an example of one who prepared himself before doors opened. So always improve yourself. He took classes. He listened to his mentors. So he was prepared to go through. So he gives his mentors a lot of credit for his successes. And then he became, from being a young immigrant son in Molokai, Hawaii, he became the first Filipino magistrate in Alaska.
Wow. So how does he make that journey to Alaska, and what is that like, being the magistrate?
Okay. His journey to Alaska, actually, when he finally got out of the Air Force, and his Air Force story is really important because he makes some really critical life changes there, and where he met people that he would be friends with for his entire life. And when he returned to Seattle, because our family was kind of based in Seattle after we left Hawaii, not all of us, we still have home in Hawaii, but he was driving with a friend, and there was an advertisement for a radio position with the Air Force in Alaska. So they made a bet that he has been all over the world, but he had never been to Alaska. So his friend says, well, I bet you couldn't go to Alaska. So he says, okay, drive me to the airport and get to a phone. He calls in, so they tell him to come in for an interview. He puts in his app and everything, and he gets the job. He gets the job instantly because in the Air Force, he was a radio operator, and that's what they needed up there. And he did so well in the Air Force that he didn't really have to take a test or anything. So he went on the ferry boat and went to Alaska early in the morning. So that Those are doors serendipitously that opened for him, and he paid attention to those.
Yeah. And you learned so much from him. I mean, obviously not just you, but others, I'm sure, in your family. And I love that saying, when doors open, pay attention, because he paid attention. And, you talk about Fisherman and friend, and you say that he had just great friends, and it looks like he was connected and never let those friends slip away. Is that right?
Yes, it's really important. Growing up in an immigrant family and in the situation we were, and my grandmother died at a young age, so that my mom took in, and Rick was one of the younger ones, took in 6 of her brothers and sisters who were all below the age of 10. So we were all together. And growing up that way, we didn't have a lot of money because my dad was a laborer in the fields. We had to come together. We had to work together as a family. So our family legacy, and it says in the book, is based on love of God, love of family, and service to others. So we hung on to those, and Rick demonstrates that, and the book demonstrates that. And that's why I wanted to write that book, not only for future generations, but also to share with everyone in an immigrant family situation that way, and the immigrant stories. I know there are a lot of immigrant stories out there. That's how, with our moral values, our good family values, and with hard work, that's what I learned and witnessed from Rick. I heard it around me in family all the time growing up, but I watched Rick really demonstrate that. So, yeah.
Rich. What a rich story. So The Magistrate, Family Man, Fisherman, Friend, you can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. What do you hope people take away from reading this book?
2 things. The first thing is your story is very important, especially the immigrant American story is so important because that's what we are. And, we are a young country. We are only 242 years since our independence. So these stories, and still identifying who we are as Americans, I say that other than the indigenous people who have been here long before our Constitution was deeply rooted here, that every family has an immigrant story that goes back when our first ancestor came here. So we have wonderful stories about how hard workers we are and how the American values are really solidified, that way. So I want everyone to know that their stories are important to tell and to share. That's really important because it can get lost. And the other thing was that your family institution, what we stand on shoulders, strong shoulders, and we need to remember our ancestors, and that's what we want. And I particularly want our future generations, especially in our family, to know where they come from. They need to have an attachment to that because our 3rd, 4th generations, they have everything. They have good education. They have good jobs. I'm so proud of them and, love them for where they are. They are living the dreams of my grandparents that came in 1919. And they still need to learn where that came from and the hard work that previous ancestors really did so that they could experience and enjoy life today as we know it.
Wow. Such a great story, and I think an inspiration to so many, and to remind all of you, who are your mentors, what are you doing, and what happens, when a door opens, pay attention like Uncle Rick did. Deb Gomez, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Kate.